Good morning, everyone. Hi, Dawn and Julie, Penny, Sydney's note taker. While we wait for people to join, yeah, like Tiana said, feel free to jump in the chat. Let us know where you're joining from. Guess I'll add mine as well. Yeah, all over, huh? Indiana, Utah, Minnesota, Maryland, South Carolina. I think that's one of the coolest parts about doing like this with the centers, you really get an idea of how many people are. It's not like a lone thing. All right. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and get started, and if people hop in as we go, that's great. Is that okay, Heather, Amy? We're good to go? Awesome.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Silvestros. I am the learning tool operator for the National Microschooling Center. Everybody joining us, you're already a member, you know what we're all about. But those of you who are new to the center, I'll give you a bit of background on our Learning Tools program. So, if you are a microschool that implements a curriculum, being a member for the center is really beneficial for you because you get access to different learning tools that we've partnered with that you wouldn't otherwise have access to due to your small size or budget. All of the learning tools that we offer through the center are interest-based, meaning that we are not seeking out these programs. You guys are coming to us saying, hey, I learned about this learning tool, or hey, we've been using this learning tool and it's incredible. We'd really like to see if the center could, make something work so that more people can have access to it. So MindPlay, for example, was brought to my attention by a few different leaders, some of them who are on the call this morning as well. And because they've seen the impact that MindPlay has had on their students. So we are all about helping our leaders make sure that they have the resources they need for their students to thrive in this setting. And being able to offer MindPlay is just one of the ways that we're doing that. So thank you for joining. I'm really, really eager to hear what Amy and Heather have to say about MindPlay and the science of reading, seeing how we can all continue to do our best to help our kiddos thrive. So, Amy, I will let you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. We really appreciate you taking the opportunity to get us started and be willing to let us share with your microschool community. So I wanted to just
Take it from here.
to the MindPlay community. We've got a couple of different people that if you decide to partner with MindPlay, you will get to know well. So Aaron Cole is your partnership account executive. He works closely with Sarah, and Sarah's been working with Aaron to get you guys an awesome deal. So that's one of the big benefits of if you decide to partner with MindPlay and you want to offer that program and solution to your students, you go through the National Microschooling Center and you get an awesome deal. So Aaron and Sarah have been partnering together to do that. And then once you decide to move forward, then Felicia and Heather are the two partner success specialists that will support your account, that will help you get rostered and set up and make sure you know all things to be successful, both from the teacher end and the data, and then also how to help your students. So we wanted you to see their faces. You will work much more with Heather and Felicia than you will with Aaron, which Aaron's awesome, but that's a blessing because Heather and Felicia, even he would say, are the better part of our team. They're amazing people. So excited to have you get to know them as you work with us here at MindPlay. All right, so as we get started here today, we want to talk about MindPlay and individualizing education and literacy from a lens that resonates with you guys. And I first started working with microschools. It was about a year and a half ago when Tony reached out to me from Arizona with her microschool. And it just was powerful as you read this quote here. Um, it was powerful to see the way microschooling takes personalized learning to the direction it was always intended to be. Can we give education to students in the way where we meet them right where they are, let them be excited and help drive their learning? And so we're excited to share some things in the literacy lens that go hand in hand with how you guys, the micro schools, personalize learning for your students. So I want you to keep a couple questions in mind as we go through today's presentation. I want you to make sure that you're thinking about um, what is some of the reading success roadblocks that your students are facing? Okay, I know from the microschooling world, you guys are working with students from all ages, and when you have even just a group of students that are all the same age. They have a variety of abilities and interests and strengths and weaknesses. And that is even heightened as you add different ages and different grades. So I know some myself, but I want you to, in your head, be thinking and drop in the chat, what are some roadblocks that your students specifically are facing today in regards to reading success? So specifically your students first. Go ahead and drop that in the chat. And Heather is going to help me monitor that chat and maybe even just call out a couple that she sees come out. And then as you're typing and thinking about your students, then we're going to take this to an educator way. What are some of the roadblocks you face in solving those problems for your students? So go ahead. I'm just going to give you like 30 seconds to just drop some of those ideas in the chat. And actually, I can just monitor the chat myself here. Student motivation and culture. Yeah, they have so many different things that motivate them, so many different things they like, that they're interested in. And man, nowadays where we're going up against TikTok and YouTube and all sorts of other technology things, holding their interest can be hard. Yeah, Tony says learning disabilities like dyslexia. That was one of the reasons Tony first reached out. How do we make sure that we're adequately providing the education that students that do struggle for different reasons um, need? So I'm going to go ahead and move on for now, but I want you to keep these questions in your mind because we feel really strongly at MindPlay that we only want to be a fit if we can help you solve the problems that you have. So keep those in mind as we go throughout this. So our objectives for today's webinar is we want to teach you how MindPlay and just in general how educators can individualize instruction through the science of reading. So we're going to take the majority of this webinar just teaching you about how you guys are going to be able to individualize instruction through the science of reading. After we do that piece, then we're going to explore motivation strategies. So I love that already we had that come up in the chat. Like, how do we keep students motivated? We want to show you how you can have motivational strategies that are going to help support students and help them want to drive their own learning. And then finally, we're going to help you understand how, whether it's us or someone else, how you can use adaptive technology to really help you deliver data-driven instruction and make the most impact as educators. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over to Heather. She's going to teach you about that first objective.
Wonderful. Well, it's so nice to be with all of you, and I'm very excited if I get the opportunity to work with any of you and at your microschool sites. I'm a former educator, and I'm really excited just to share what we've got in the program and some other things. So before we get started, we're going to kind of talk a little bit about the science of reading. So if you've got a second to just put in the chat, what do you think of when you hear the term science of reading? What does that mean to you? Does that trigger anything in your thoughts? And I hate to admit it, but, and this will age me, but when I went through school and got my education degree, uh, I didn't learn anything about science of reading. So I've had to kind of, as I've learned more about mind play and things like that, I've had to kind of learn about all the research and things behind science of reading. So, all right, I'll go ahead and move on and let's talk a little bit about what science of reading is not. Number one, it's not just a phonics program. Phonics is only one element of the larger body of knowledge. Oh, I got a comment there. Sarah saying how the brain puts meaning into symbols, science of reading. Excellent. Liz says, since I've been trained in science of reading, I found that my students understand why things, I've been found that my students understand why things work. Absolutely. So science reading's not phonics curriculum or a phonics program. It's not a curriculum. It's not a set of curricular materials. You can't adopt it or audit it or pilot it or buy it. It really is evidence-based reading instruction. I like how Stephen phrased that in the chat there. It really is an interdisciplinary body of research encompassing psychology, neuroscience, and education. And it really examines how individuals learn to read, the challenges that some may encounter, and the most effective instructional methods to enhance literacy outcomes. So when we looked at individualized instruction, because you've got all these lovely children in your micro schools. When I was teaching, I had all these lovely children in my classroom, and they were all very different in what they needed. And so when I was looking at individualizing instruction for those students, I had to look at a couple different components to determine how was best to teach them how to read. So number one was pacing. How fast or slowly did I need to go through material to make sure that students were mastering skills? Secondly, what am I going to teach? What do these students need to teach in order to become a on grade level reading with comprehension reader? Secondly, what methods am I going to use? What I use for one student may not be applicable or as effective for another student. And finally, assessment. That's my one tool that I'm going to have to make sure that the students are learning what I'm teaching them. And so if I don't assess and just assume, we might be in a whole bunch of trouble. So when we're looking about individualized instruction, it's not just what we teach, it's not just that curriculum, it's really how we teach it. Are we differentiating based on the student's needs? Are we making sure we come up with an individualized plan for each of our students? Are we using a variety of instructional methods in order to reach all the students that we have in our classrooms and in our groups? And then using flexible grouping in order to kind of use our time efficiently. So if I've got a group of students that is working on the same skill, I can put them together, but then maybe 2 weeks later, they've kind of spread out in regards to what their needs are, and I've got to regroup. And then finally, making sure we're culturally responsive and, being aware of the background that students come with when they come to us in our schools. And then finally, ongoing assessment, always assessing to make sure that I am teaching right where that student needs me to be. So, not only do we have a curriculum, but we've got to look at the students' needs and how we come to them with that instructional material in order to be an effective educator. So science of reading in action, and these are some shots from MindPlay. Not only is it kind of that research-based, piece of knowledge that we've got, but it also is making sure we cover all the components of reading instruction. So we're talking phonemic awareness and phonics and vocabulary and comprehension and fluency and grammar for meaning. If a student doesn't have all of these pieces solidly in place, they're going to struggle as a reader who can comprehend for knowledge. So let's look at these pieces a little bit more and closely. So first of all, phonics, and you hear phonics a lot of times when you hear people talk about science of reading. And I found this little clip that I thought was pretty funny because it seemed like something that would happen to me when I was teaching. It was a teacher quote said, I was assessing my incoming kindergartners last year, and I said, okay, now we're gonna do letter sounds. Do you know what sound this letter makes? One replied, I don't know, maybe bing bong, then proceeded to make sound effects for the rest of the letters. And that totally would have been something that would happen to me. That was my favorite part of teaching, was just getting these cute little nuggets of what kids would do. But, some kids come to us with not any of that phonemic awareness or phonics knowledge, and they think that, it's going to make the sound bing bong. But what the definition of phonics is correlating sounds with letters or groups of letters in an alphabetic writing system. So activities that you would do to kind of address these skills would be word sorts, making word activities, going over spelling rules, using familiar games such as Go Fish or Bingo or Memory to really work on training the brain to understand that when I see this letter, that's the sound it makes, and to be able to put those sounds together to create words, and then to put those words together to create whole sentences and be able to comprehend what I'm reading. When MindPlay covers phonics instruction and activities in the class or in the activity in the program, we use a multitude of different activities to teach a skill. This is just one example. This is the TCH DGE activity from MindPlay. It's the building where the students will build words. But we're only going to expose them to the letters that we already know they have mastery of and offer those up as options when they're building words together. But students might be building words, they might be reading words, they might be finding words, they might be spelling words. And we ask students to, I should fast forward so you can actually see what she's doing here. There we go. So as kids work through each activity, they're going to earn stars for doing things correct. And it really is kind of like a one-on-one tutor. So if I've just taught TCH or DGE, I might pull out letter cards and we'd be working together in a small group or one-on-one to build these words. And that's what they would do in the program as well too. When we look at all the different phonics lessons that we could cover, oops, there we go. There's 96 phonics skills that we cover in the entire program. And you can see this really long list of them here. And again, I came out of school during the whole language piece. I didn't learn about all of this and how to teach all of this. But when I came to MindPlay and I realized, oh my gosh, all the things that I'd been missing when I was teaching, we've got not only do we cover all of those phonics skills, but we have lots of different ways that we instruct on those skills as well too. So we're not just going to teach it in one way, we're going to teach it in multiple ways. And when students are engaging in the program, we're going to give immediate feedback for a correct or incorrect answer. We're going to show them where that incorrect answer is, provide feedback to correct the answer, and then celebrate when they do get it right. I really look at the way the program functions as students really having a one-on-one experience with a tutor, and we're teaching them exactly what they need and responding to them with what they need exactly and immediately. So phonics is really crucial, and that's one of the first things that you think of when we're talking science of reading, but there's so many other pieces that we also have to look at as well. Phonemic awareness, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. So let's look at so when we look at all of those pieces, it really creates this holistic picture of how a student is as a reader. Um, this is an image from one of our data pieces in the MindPlay Reading Studio program. And this is actually new to us over the past year and a half. And I really love it because it gives us such a nice visual of where students are strong and where students might need some individual and some instructional focus. So this is called a foundational skills profile. Green line is end of grade level goal. And you can see the areas where the student is at or above grade level goal in regards to their reading capabilities. And you can see areas where we might need to focus on with that student in order to help them become an even better reader. And it gives you a really good opportunity to see those bright spots, especially if you've got a student who maybe is functioning below grade level in all those areas. They're still going to have relative strengths and things to really celebrate and things that, okay, they're really good at some of these pieces. And I also know exactly where I need to focus on in instruction for this student. So let's go and let's talk about phonemic awareness a little bit. So we talked about phonics, but right below that is the concept of phonemic awareness. And when we're talking about phonemic awareness, we're really talking about phonological awareness, the ability to identify, manipulate, and distinguish individual sounds, phonemes in words. And you can kind of see how that skill builds on itself, starting out with rhyming and alliteration, segments, sentence segmentation, syllables, onset and rhymes, and then that true phonemic awareness ability. And I think back to, when I was growing up, I did, part of my just everyday, I just remember nursery rhymes being part of what I would do as a kid. And I had books of nursery rhymes. My parents would read me nursery rhymes a lot, and all of that piece. We don't do those as much anymore. And I really feel like some of that might be just from some of the lack of phonemic awareness that some of our students come to us with is kind of due to some of those things not being built into their everyday kind of interactions anymore. I have 5 kiddos, and I'm a trained teacher. And my last daughter was in preschool, her last year preschool, and she's the last of 5, so I wasn't paying as much attention probably. But her preschool teacher pulled me aside and she said, "Hey, do you know Conley can't rhyme?" And I thought, what are you talking about? Of course she can rhyme. Like, she's the daughter of a teacher. Of course she can rhyme. And so I brought her home, and sure enough, she couldn't rhyme. And I thought back to,
all the things that I was doing with her, and I probably hadn't been focused as much as some of those repetitive pattern books, those rhyming books, all of those things. So that day we started backing up and doing all of those pieces, because if you struggle with some of these foundational phonological awareness skills, then moving on to phonics and then becoming a reader can be very, very difficult. Skill in phonological awareness is a very strong indicator of success later on as a reader. Um, so I started doing all of those kind of speech language pathologist games I'd learned from some of my speech language pathologist friends, where, we're substituting sounds and moving sounds around. I wasn't even pulling out words. And sure enough, she had a really hard time with it. So we had to spend some time that last preschool year really working on those foundational skills. That was totally a sidebar, but anyway. So you can kind of look at that pyramid of skills as we go up to the more difficult ones. So just isolating those sounds out, blending, segmenting, adding sounds to a word, taking sounds off and changing it into a new word. All of those kind of sound manipulation skills build into that idea of phonological awareness. This is just a quick example of one of the phonological awareness activities that's built into MindPlay. I'm going to turn her down. And this is a counting sounds activity. So the coach is going to give the student a word. They count the number of sounds in the word, and then they push up a coin for each word. This is something you can do with pennies or counters, or I've even pulled out those super annoying Poppet toys that were really trending a couple of years ago, that were annoying but helpful when we were practicing counting sounds. So, the students do it built into the MindPlay program, but you can also do it as a small group activity or things like that. And it's really just teaching kids to pull apart those words and hear those individual sounds in a word. All right, second kind of piece that we want to cover is vocabulary. So vocabulary, we know that readers with extensive vocabularies can more easily decode and understand text, facilitating deeper engagement and learning. So the words you come to a text with can deeply impact how you comprehend that text. So if we look at kind of the vocabulary broken up into multiple tiers, tier one is kind of those common everyday words. Tier two are more high frequency content specific, and then tier three are lower frequency, very content specific words. So as text gets more difficult, and as your students start, instead of learning to read, but reading to learn, those tier two and tier three words become more important as we're studying specific topics in social studies or science or other areas. Then we've got to branch outside of those tier one words into tier two and tier three. And if I don't have a strong base of tier one knowledge, the minute I start getting more difficult with that material, the harder it's going to be for me to comprehend. So one of the one of the components that we teach a lot in MindPlay is vocabulary, and increasing students' understanding of words and exposing them to the more of those common everyday words. Next piece that we talk about is that grammar for meaning. Grammar for meaning is important. If you've got a strong knowledge in grammar, you're going to be a better comprehender, and you also are going to be a better writer as well too. When we're looking at grammar for meaning, we're looking at all kinds of different pieces. We're looking at sentence structure. We're looking at verb tense. We're looking at parts of speech. We're looking at the order of words, and we're looking at agreement rules. And this slide kind of really reinforces the importance of grammar. Correct punctuation can save a person's life, really. So that's one of my favorite little funny things. In MindPlay, I'm going to unhide this and show you. Sorry, just a second. Oh, you want to see my email there? I decided I wanted to show you this slide. This is one of the activities, the grammar activities built into the program.
Noun in space or time. Prepositions are often small words like to, at, in, on, up. Look.
So I'm going to freeze that there and talk a little bit about that. So we're providing direct instruction in those grammar skills, because we know if students understand how grammar functions in a sentence or in a paragraph, then they're going to comprehend that information much better. All right, final two pieces, fluency and comprehension. So when we're looking at fluency, we look at two different pieces of fluency. We look at oral reading fluency and silent reading fluency. Oral reading fluency, we're really looking at how students are pronouncing words, how they're sounding. Are they reading smoothly? Are they choppy readers? Are they reading too fast? Are they reading too slow and labored? But really what we want is for students to be able to read aloud smoothly and correctly with appropriate intonation, rhythm, making the text understandable and engaging for listeners. On the other side, and where we spend most of our time with reading is in silent reading fluency. And that really is focused on that internal processing. So we're going to read more quickly while we're reading silently, and we're going to be able to process larger amounts of text. And the goal for silent reading fluency is to understand and interpret text quickly and efficiently retaining key information. And if you look at MindPlay, we've got two different ways that we measure both of those. We have an oral reading of fluency assessment built in, where the students will read aloud into the program and it actually grades it for you, which is brilliant. And then we also are going to look at silent reading fluency and look at students' rates with their rate of reading, and then also their comprehension rate as well when we measure that silent reading fluency. And you can see this is an example of one of the fluency activities. And this is an expected fluency passage. So what makes us unique is that the words will start to fade out. If I hit play here, there we go, as students are reading. And this is kind of how we control the rate. What I love about the way that the fluency and comprehension component works in the program is it really functions like a trainer. So I look at it kind of like students are training for a reading race almost. If any of you have had the torturous experience of training like for a 5K, you start low and slow, and then you slowly build up your speed as well as your distance. And that's how the fluency training component works in MindPlay as well too. We're going to start students lower and slower with difficulty and rate. And as they maintain and excel in comprehending those texts, the rate will increase and the difficulty of passage will increase, but it increases very gradually so that it's very systematic. So we're not going to rush a student and show them something that's too fast and they can't comprehend it. It's going to be very systematic in how we teach students how to read more quickly, but also maintaining comprehension. Because I'm sure all of you have had students who can sit next to you and read very quickly, but then if you ask them what they read about, they don't know, they can't remember anything that they read. They're reading so fast that they're not comprehending what they're doing. So this ensures that we're going to read with more speed and more difficulty, but while maintaining that comprehension. All right, and finally, let's talk about comprehension a little bit. Reading comprehension, in order to understand a text, we're going to rely on two pieces. Number one is our background knowledge, what we come to that passage already knowing, and then the application of cognitive strategies to help us to understand that passage. When we're comprehending a text, we have to have all these different pieces working in order for us to fully comprehend what we read. We have to be able to decode that passage and decode it quickly and efficiently. We have to have background knowledge, bring that to our comprehension of that passage. We have to have knowledge of the vocabulary that's used in that passage. And then we also have to be able to read that passage fluently. All of those pieces add into us being able to comprehend text. And the final piece that isn't really one of those pillars of the science of reading in regards to an instructional component, but I feel is very important, is this idea of automaticity. And I go back to this one a lot because I feel like this is what I was missing when I was teaching a lot of the time, which I love. That's why I love the beauty of the micro schools, because you guys have the opportunity to really individualize and slow your pace for what each student needs. And I feel like that's what MindPlay does too. So when we're talking about automaticity, it's really that quality of being performed involuntarily, unconsciously as a reflex, innate process, or ingrained habit. Okay. So this clip kind of perfectly illustrates the idea of automaticity. If anybody's seen the movie Forrest Gump has got ping pong down to automaticity. I can guarantee you he probably isn't thinking about what he's doing. He's just doing. And that's kind of where we get to that point of automaticity. So if you can think, what are some things, if you want to put in the chat, what are some things that you do automatically during your day? Things that you don't even have to think about. It's involuntary, it's unconscious, it's a reflex. Anybody got anything good? Amy put up one there. Amy said driving. Piano. Oh, that's a great one. I wish I was automatic on piano. Brushing your teeth. Yep. I don't think about brushing my teeth while I'm brushing my teeth. Absolutely. These are all things that we do automatically. Driving is a perfect illustration, feeding your pets. Um, think about what you did, any of these skills that you put in, especially like you're driving, playing the piano. What did you have to do to get those skills to automaticity? Just hop down on the piano and be able to play? Practice, absolutely. Practice, repetition. Forrest had to practice a lot before he got here to this piece of ping pong. If you think about the movie, that vignette where it leads up to him, getting really good at ping pong. I always think about this. Yeah, Amy said do them over and over again. Absolutely. I don't know how many of you have teenagers or have experienced the joy of teaching someone to drive. But when you're riding in the passenger seat with somebody who does not have driving to automaticity, it can be rather frightening, right? So I count of most of my gray hair that I have to color over. I account that mostly to teaching 3 of my kiddos to drive so far, because you don't realize how many different pieces you have to actually talk them through to do something simple. So if they're making a turn, I'm going to pause Forrest here because thanks, Forrest. When I can think of just talking my kids through how to even stop at a stop sign, make sure it was safe, and then make a turn. You had to talk about how gently to push on the brake, turn on your turn signal, look both ways multiple times, slowly put on the gas. Where if I'm making that turn, I don't even think about what I'm doing, I just do it. So when you think about that concept and the idea of automaticity, that's really what we're talking about with all these foundational skills when we come to reading. So when we read to automaticity, if you look at a brain scan of somebody who's reading, there are multiple different areas of the brain that are activated all at one time and that are all working together automatically in order for a student to decode and then read a passage for comprehension. Because we've got to trigger phonological awareness, we've got to use phonics skills, we have to use rapid processing, and we have to pull all that vocabulary knowledge and comprehension that we have in order to really comprehend text. So when we look at teaching foundational skills, not only do we need to teach them, but we have to teach them to automaticity. And that was a piece I missed when I was teaching, is that I didn't sometimes sit on a skill as long as a student needed me to, and we didn't practice it enough as I knew the student would need. I would move on too quickly without realizing that some students might take 10 repetitions or 15 repetitions or 20 repetitions in order to get those foundational skills into their long-term memory and for them to be automatic. The beauty of MindPlay is that MindPlay is patient. And it's not worried about other curriculum pieces that we've got to get to. If the student needs to know short I, we're going to hang out there until we know that that skill is automatic. All right, so very simple view of reading when we're looking at students that when we want them to be where they're reading with comprehension. We're going to use that research-based framework used in the science of reading, and we're going to use 2 pieces. We're going to use that word recognition and then language comprehension. So if I can get word recognition to automaticity, if I can be decoding words automatically so that when I see a text, I'm not fussing for the words, but I'm really reading for comprehension. And then if I pull in the language that I know, I'm going to be able to read a text and understand what it says and comprehend that text. 2 kind of pieces that equal a very effective reader. Number 1 is effective and explicit instruction. So when you deliver instruction to students, we really need to be directly explaining what we need them to do. We need to be directly teaching on that skill. We need to be modeling how to do that skill. We need to do some guided practice on that skill. And then we need to give them activities to apply the skill to show that they have mastery of what we've just taught. MindPlay goes through all of those different pieces in the program. In addition, we're going to make sure that we're covering all those pillars of science reading we're instructing in phonics and phonemic awareness and grammar, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. On top of that, we're providing individualized instruction because what all your students need is very different depending on what they come to school with and where we need to instruct and how long it takes them to master skills. We want to cover all those curriculum components. We want to drive those skills to automaticity, and then we want to teach the students how to apply those skills into real life text. that's where we're going to end up with strong readers. And that is the end of my section. But anyway, in order to kind of share some of the things that we've got some instructional resources that cover some of these different areas. So we've got this QR code up that if you'd like to copy it, that will take you directly to a link of some instructional resources that we have for you. All right, and Amy, I will turn it over to you unless anybody's got questions about science reading, automaticity, any of those curriculum components.
Thank you so much, Heather. That was so great. And the one thing also that the link, yes, we will, I'll grab that link when I'm not talking and drop it in the chat for you. Thank you for asking for that instead of the QR code. One of the other things I think about, Heather, as you were sharing, is when we think about automaticity, how we need to not learn it wrong. I also was a piano player, so the automaticity, right? Or my daughter was a violin player, and how awful it is if something gets to the automatic level and it's the wrong way. And then the teacher's like, no, you're doing that wrong. And then you have to retrain yourself. And so that immediate corrective feedback that you saw there, that's a component we bring to you because it's very hard for you guys as micro school educators to provide immediate feedback times 10 or 20 students that are all in your classroom at the same time. So I think that's an important piece too, is remember we want the correct skill to automatic level. So thanks so much for sharing, Heather. That was amazing. And we hope that you guys took some of those strategies to heart and that you'll know how to apply them in order to help your students really become strong readers, like Heather said. So now our next objective is how can we motivate students and help them so that they want to drive their own learning? So with motivation, we want to look at a few different components. We want to foster the ability for students to be patient. That's right. You can go back, actually, Heather. I want to stress here that we want to foster in them the ability to be patient and progress a little bit at a time. You know, we all just want to be like so good right away. If you have a kiddo who wants to become, let's just say, an NBA basketball player someday, right? And they really just want to go from like, I can't dribble to like, I'm playing in the NBA. But I really like this quote. A little progress each day adds up to big results. And I share this because as you're considering motivation with whether it be literacy or math or science or social studies or whatever topic you're working with your students, learning occurs little by little, you know, like it's that compound effect. And I think you guys have the opportunity to really instill that in students and help them be willing to celebrate those small successes and recognize them and know and trust that those little bits of success day after day will end up yielding the results they want. So yeah, go ahead and skip now. So we want to foster motivation and confidence by sharing growth, because one of the parts that makes that hard is sometimes when we're doing the little things every day, it doesn't look like much growth. So we want to make sure that we're showing students that they are growing. We want them to have short-term goals that are achievable so that it's not like I want to read the Count of Monte Cristo that's 1,000 pages, you know, but hey, can we read just this small book that eventually will lead us to that? We want to make sure we incorporate student choice. And I should add here student interest as part of reading instruction, right? Like what are they excited about? And then we want to celebrate that progress. So MindPlay does incorporate a lot of ways to foster motivation and confidence. We are not the most gamified program, and we don't try to be. We are a very rigorous, direct instruction. We are making sure students know how to read. But what educators have told me, and we've brought on a couple to share with you, is that when students feel that success, when they're like, oh my gosh, this is working, I can read, they get motivated all on their own. And so you're going to find that we build motivation into more through student ownership and student clarity and student success than through like games. So go ahead and switch to the next. So I'm just going to share a little bit. I'm going to talk over it here. The student experience, they get to take an interest survey. That way, as we are recommending books to them, it's books that are of their interest, that they've said things they like, and we curate that library. They are going to take assessments and screeners, but as they take those screeners in our program, we do give them opportunities to see that growth, to see their progress. And then we give them this spider chart that you can then show with them, and you can show them, look at your growth, look at how you're progressing. We give them a dashboard so they can see their Lexile level growing. They can see their minutes that they worked with the coach, and they can see the minutes that they're reading in the library. They can see the books they're reading. And then this is the student map. So when they're with our coach, they can see the lessons, the skills that they are mastering. They can practice their fluency, and they can feel that success as they, like she said, the trainer, they can see themselves getting faster as a reader. They can set goals so that they can make sure that they are mastering these lessons. You know, here they're working with the coach to master these skills. We want them to see that automaticity coming. And then we're also giving them decodable text to apply those skills. So then as they can read harder texts and they see those decodables growing, then they feel that success as well. So lots of information here in the coach part of their student map so that they see that progress with those lessons that they're mastering. They see that progress of how many books they're reading, and they can also work together to a class goal so that they can help the class master so many lessons in a week or in a month and help be part of that. Then when they're working in the library, we have over 10,000 texts in our library, and our partners were like, you know what, we don't want students spending so much time picking. And so we've worked really hard to curate the library to the students' interest. And then we also provide power text mode so that they see this lightning bolt, as you can see on the screen here, so they can read books at their just right Lexile level, but also choose, so it's at their level, but books they'll be interested in and excited about. We do give free mode as an option as well, and we recommend you alternate students. Let's have them read at their just right Lexile level and grow as a reader, and then let's let them read books that are harder than their level, but that they also can have accommodations to help them. So lots of things built into our students' experience to help foster that motivation and confidence through student clarity and ownership. Now, I'd like to introduce you to one of our guest presenters, because Rochelle Noble is an amazing educator that I had the joy of coming. Rochelle reached out back in the spring. Some things that Rochelle says here: she's been educating for a long time, that she believes in respect and really meeting students right where they are. And I can tell you, Rochelle does that. Rochelle makes every person that she encounters feel unique and special. And that's why I know that her students are motivated with her, because they feel that self-love for themselves and from her. So I'm going to turn the time over to Rochelle, and she's going to share some more strategies of how she helps motivate students.
Thanks, Amy. And there's a few people on this call that I have not seen for a long time, and I'm very excited I wish we were seeing faces, but to all of you that I've worked with before, this is really fun. Kansas, Florida, and Arizona are all in the house, and that's really cool. One of the things that I feel really strongly about, as I was thinking through kind of what to talk about, I realized that if any of you are Brene Brown fans, not everyone knows. If you haven't read Brene Brown, I would recommend it. She talks about the concept of armor and the fact that that when we are wounded as a human being, we put on armor and we don't let that part of ourselves be. And Heather, I'm counting on you to be very expressive so that I know if I'm on track or not. So thanks, I can. So the majority of kids have had pain, or in a lot of cases trauma, in their educational environments, and creating a space where they can be safe enough to take off their armor. I think for reading, spelling, writing, these play a huge part. It's not about whether or not their brain's capable. It's about whether or not they've been wounded in that some way, sometime. So I just wanted to mention that because I believe the core, that the most important part of what happens in our microschools is the emotional safety of the kids. The academic progress will be a byproduct of that, because their brain will be able to function in a way that can actually learn when they feel safe. So there's that. Specific to motivation, kind of understanding what their blocks are. I have one student who will stop working when she makes a mistake. I have another student who will stop working when somebody else sees her make a mistake. Like what's causing it is different, but and so what we've identified as a staff is like, how do we build grit and persistence into these students who very quickly will walk away if they feel that shame about not knowing be triggered. And so it really is, and that's what I love about being in the micro school is you actually get to know all of your kids really well and to understand them and hopefully understand why by communicating with parents, communicating with them. Sometimes they can't articulate it. Sometimes you just see it. So figuring out what excites them is, I think, the easiest part. What I've said is, because it's really easy as an educator to be like, you have to do this because I said so, or because it's on a list, or because it's part of your whatever. You just have to do it. And there is no buy-in to the why they have to do it. And so as for me, I see my task, role, job as helping kids want to do the things they need to do. Like that's the game that I'm playing in my micro school is how do I take somebody who really doesn't want to do something and make it interesting enough or applicable enough to them that they actually want to do it. So I've thought about a few examples of this. I have a freshman. This is my first year. So I've been helping people start micro schools for the last 6 years. And last year was my first year of my own micro school in my home. I had 18, by the end of the year, 18 kinder through 8th graders. So this is my first year with a high schooler. So I'm partnered with an accredited private school to be able to do transcripting and all that. And so obviously we need to figure out the core classes in a way that isn't boring. Like I don't want kids to do things that are boring. And so with the help of ChatGPT, I created a freshman English course that's entirely revolves around Sonic the Hedgehog. He will do all of the writing that he needs to do. He will do all the reading he needs to do that he would normally do in a freshman English class, but it'll be in something he cares about. And when I told him this, he was like off the charts excited. This is a kid that's in my school that very functioning on the autism spectrum. And he just was like so excited. He's excited for his English class. Like that's a big deal. I was just telling Amy and Heather before the call that, my friend Tom Bogle, that some of you know, I was struggling. I realized that I wanted all of my kids to, and this is before I didn't find MindPlay till the very, very end of the school year. So I have used it and I got excited about it, but my use of it has been limited because I was talking to Tony at a microschool field day in Mesa, Arizona, and she's like, "Hey, I'm doing this," and I was like, "This sounds really interesting." So I reached out, but before I had found that, I was like, I want all of my kids to learn phonics, learn the phonograms, because I was homeschooled in the 80s, and my mom took Spalding from Mrs. Spalding, if you have any idea what that is, and I realized that my reading, I think, was supported by that. It's so boring to practice phonograms. Like it's just anything wrote, like taking anything wrote and making it more interesting. So my friend Tom was like, okay, here's what you're going to do. And so he sent me a link to, we used cardstock. We made the most amazing Harry Potter wands. We decorate, like they could create all of the like decor on the handles with hot glue guns. This has nothing to do with literacy, sorry. And painted them. They're like these beautiful wands. And then we got them little tiny composition notebooks, and we called them, their spell books, and we called the phonogram sound spells. This did not solve this for every kid, but I had kids learn phonograms that would not have learned phonograms without that. So my favorites, Chikash for CH is one of my favorites. So they're like doing it with their wand, and it just like gave something really boring a different way to look at it. And I think that's where the exciting part of figuring out how to provide ways for them to want to do the things they need to do matters so much. The things that I've really appreciated about MindPlay, that net that I don't remember if Amy or Heather showed it, but that shows the different, fluency, grammar, literacy. I can look at that and say, okay, and across the board, all of my students that have come from all sorts of different learning environments into my microschool, the weaknesses across the board were phonics and grammar. And yeah, so right here, which is apparently maybe the norm, because this one is too. And so not only did MindPlay give me this data, I could say to my student, do you want to do MindPlay today or do you want to write? And so if they wrote a story, we could then do the work on the grammar and phonics on paper, or they could choose to do it in the program. And it just gave, I was a high school math teacher that graduated in history. So I don't have the science of reading in my background. I don't have elementary education in my background. And this last year was the first year that I was responsible for teaching kids how to read. And so that's a daunting task if you've never done it before. And it's kind of terrifying because it's the one skill that every kid must have. Like I don't remember if it was talking to Amy, but we were just talking about the fact that you can't pass like your SAT math if you can't read, because you need to read the directions or word problems, whatever. So there's so much writing on reading ability, and being able to have it broken down for me, who doesn't have this in my background, and understanding that it's Orton Gillingham based, and that's going to bring benefits to students, even if I don't know exactly what that means. People have told me, like, I've been around long enough to have people be like, this is a great system for teaching kids how to read. So, so I've appreciated the data and the opportunity for my kids to work in the program and me to see kind of where they're going. I have had kids just like, because you can have it where your class, they can see how much either of each other have done. And and so they go into like MindPlay competitions, which gets really fun. So that's all I wanted to share, but I'm grateful to be here today, and just am excited to work with kids.
Thank you so much, Rochelle. Oh, those were some good ideas. People were like, that is so cool. So I think sometimes we just need to hear how other people are applying the strategies. So thank you. All right, guys. So our last objective is, how can we use adaptive technology for data-driven instruction? So one thing I want you to know about me, I'm also a former educator, and I'm an old school educator. I want a person teaching my child. I don't want a device teaching my child. And yet here I work for an ed tech company. So you would think those two things don't go together. But when we can use adaptive technology wisely, and when we can use it as the tool to help us make the greatest impact, that's when we can change the trajectory for students. So as you can see on this slide, when students are below grade level expectation, it is really hard to close that gap. And many of you get students in the microschool environment because the traditional school model was not closing that gap for them. And so they're coming to you really with hope that you're going to be able to do that. And so MindPlay really is an adaptive technology program that will help you make that difference, that will help you close that gap. Just want to show you a couple quick things about how MindPlay does that. We're going to give you lots of different assessments that are built in that make it really easy for you, and those assessments are adaptive. We're going to help you with that direct instruction. So if, like Rochelle, your background is not in science of reading, or you don't know the specific ways to teach those foundational skills, let our coaches help. And then we have offline resources as well, so that you can then pull small groups and give that direct instruction. And then we have a library of over 10,000 texts that are Lexiled. We have 2,000 texts in Spanish, and we have 300 decodable texts just to help get those beginning skills mastered. I want to make sure that you know what the coach looks and sounds like, because we've talked about that coach. So I'm just going to play just for a minute here. Let's see if maybe the sound will work on this one for us, Heather. Oh, it doesn't look like it will, but the coach is on screen giving this direct instruction. Like Rochelle said, aligned to Orton Gillingham methodology. We're going to be giving explicit, direct, sequential instruction, different coaches. So we want your students to see themselves reflected on the screen, and we're going to be giving that instruction 9 to 15 different ways. We want to make sure students get it as many times as they need till we get to that automaticity place. And we're going to be giving that immediate corrective feedback so that the skill we want to master is what becomes automatic. You can go ahead and switch this slide here for me. We want to then bring all of that data to you. So again, we're using adaptive technology to make a difference in how you guys interact and teach the students. So we're going to give you student improvement reports, foundational risk reports. We're going to make sure that you see that progress for your student. And then we just launched our student growth overview report. This is going to give you such drilled in data to each of your students. Not only are you going to get that spider chart that shows you where they are in each of the skills, but we're going to really break that down for you. What are their words per minute for fluency? What are the foundational vocabulary words they already know? So really powerful data to help you use that and then use those offline resources we have, lesson plans, so that you can give instruction and drive that data-driven instruction. I'm going to skip this due to time. I think we've done a pretty good job of showing you guys that we have this all built into our program, and I want to introduce our last presenter to you. Tony Miranda is the first person that introduced me to the concept of microschooling a year and a half ago. I have been thrilled to see the work she does with her students, and I'm so excited to introduce you to her and let you learn, like you did for Michelle, on how she's making literacy successful for her students. So Tony, I'm going to give you some time to share.
Awesome. Can you hear me here?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I apologize. My video is, I'm up in the mountains getting away from that nasty heat in Phoenix for a little while, and my satellite internet here is not keeping up with me, I think.
Yep.
So anyway, but I do want to share a little bit. So I originally found MindPlay because I have a student who came to me 3 years ago. And she has been really, really struggling with reading. And we tried all different kinds of programs, and nothing seemed to be helping her. And I had a friend of mine say, "Hey, have you ever seen MindPlay?" And I was like, "No." And so I started checking it out. And this is the reason that I keep sharing it with everyone. So this student, she has severe dyslexia. And she came to me and said, I quote, "Why am I so stupid? Everybody else can read and I can't." And even today, it just chokes me up because it breaks my heart that she felt that way. And so I sat down with her a lot and I said, it's just that your brain works differently than other people's. And we just need to find something that's going to teach you in a way that your brain understands. And so I told her, I said, "I found this program and I think it will work. Do you want to try it?" And she's like, "Yeah." And so she and I sat down and I told her, I said, "Well, they tell me that you need like 20 minutes a day to be able to make progress in this." And she said, "Well, can I do more?" And I said, "Well, sure." And so she chose for her goal, she wanted to do 40 minutes a day. By the end of the year, she had gone from reading at about a third, fourth grade level to seventh grade using MindPlay. And to me, that was just an amazing testimonial of how this program works. And I love it. There is so much data there. Um, I think the student growth overview is what they're calling it now. I used to access that through the parent thing. I think they called it a parent report or whatever. But what that does is it shows individually what each student is doing. And I used that a lot during the year because it showed me who was struggling with what, where they were struggling, how to help them in those things. MindPlay has lots of suggestions for lessons outside of the program if you need to give instruction to the student. So that was amazing. I had another little student that came in he's a little third grader. He's ADD, he has dyslexia. I call him my little bouncy ball because he just cannot sit still. Um, and he would never read for me. "No, I can't read." That's what he would tell me. "I can't read. It's too hard." And so I'd have him start, and he started in MindPlay too. And I noticed for him, especially spelling was horrendous. It was so hard for him to do spelling. And by the end of the year, not only was he reading at grade level, but he wasn't afraid to write and to spell anymore. And that was huge for me too, to be able to see that in him and to see that growth there. Trying to think here what else. So yeah, basically, so what I do is I have my kids work typically about 15 to 20 minutes a day, depending on where they're at. I've had some other microschool leaders tell me, oh, but my older kids don't want to do this because it's so basic. That's what they'll say. And so I've had a few of my own kids say that. And basically what I've told them is what this program does is it goes through and it analyzes the things that you know really well. So all of your strengths, but it also finds those things that you could work on that would make you a better reader. And so sometimes what they're going to do is they're going to back you up to that foundational level, to that beginning, and make sure that you really, really understand it. And it's going to help you. So it might seem like, oh, I already know this. But if you already knew it, it wouldn't be giving it to you. So that's kind of what I remind them of, and to tell them, just trust the progress, and you will get to some harder things later. But obviously, this is something that you need some extra help in. And so once I kind of explained that to them, then they were a little bit more willing to say, okay, I'll give it a try. And then once they tried it, they were fine, and they realized that, oh yeah, maybe I didn't know this as well as I thought I did. And so they progressed through that. So anyway, I've been really excited to use MindPlay. It's made a game changer in my class. The program I was using before, I was really frustrated with it because the kids would work in it every day, but I wasn't finding that it was sticking, I guess is the word I want to use. We would come back 2, 3 weeks later and I knew they had already had that in the program, but they couldn't remember it at all. And I haven't seen that with MindPlay. I like that it has the students stay with it until it becomes automatic. Then they get to go on. So those are the reasons that I love it. So thank you guys for letting me share today. And I hope you guys give it a try.
Thank you so much, Tony. A lot of those things that you were just mentioning are lots of things that I talk to other teachers about too, and that um, sometimes we don't know some of those foundational skills that older students are missing until we get into the program and realize that. And it is true, and I'll say to older students too, like if I'm 95 and I'm learning to read, I got to learn short I, no matter how old I am. So no shame in it. It's just one of those pieces we've got to put in place. All right, so let's look here. So we kind of talked through our objectives. We talked about how using that science of reading and individualized instruction can be so beneficial for our students. Talked about motivational strategies that support student-driven learning. And then we've talked about how that adaptive technology and data-driven instruction can really impact your students. And if I had to talk about my favorite piece of the program, it really would be that data piece and that how much information you as a teacher are going to see about each one of your individual students that I think it's just really hard to get working one-on-one with each student. So because of that, what we really would like to do is just share our sandbox account with you. Amy's going to put the link in the chat, and you can sign up for a free account for 30 days with your students. Unlimited amount of students that you can sign up, but you can go through here, go through the link and follow the steps. It will tell you you have 14 days, but we're going to open it up for 30 days for you. Just give it a try and just see what you think about how things are going. The other thing is that with your partnership with us, you get not only just the program, but also you have access to lots of support. So that's what I get to do is work with you all, showing you how to use the data, showing you what it's like for a student to walk through the program, and then how to use that data outside of the student's time working in the program to really enhance and target instruction and skills. So you get us too, which is good. But with that, I'd just like to tell you, thank you so much for your time. I know we went a little bit over, but I think it was really worth it. Again, my name's Heather. My email is heather@mindplay.com. You can contact me anytime. You've got Sarah's email there as well too. Feel free to reach out to either one of us or Felicia and Aaron. But I'll hang out here. Amy can hang out here a little bit too, and we can answer any questions you might have. But I'm really excited and to hear about what you think when you get kids on and get them working. I should have also told Tony and thank you for Tony and Rochelle. Thank you for joining us as well too. It's cool to hear how you're using it in your micro schools. So thank you. All right, I'll give it one more minute, then I'll shut it down.
We have one question that just hit the chat.
Yeah.
I'll take this one. So Stephen, the cost of the program is discounted through the National Microschooling. So I'm going to let you take that question to Sarah. You guys will be able to purchase with Sarah, and Tony will attest. She did it all by herself for a year, and now she's doing it through National Microschooling Center because it's going to get her a large discount. But because we're partnering with National Microschooling Center, you reach out to Sarah and tell her what you need, and then Sarah makes the purchase to us at MindPlay. So I'll direct the purchasing cost questions to Sarah. Feel free to email her, and she'll address those with you guys. Yeah, we were able to save Tony a lot of money by partnering with the National Microschooling Center. So I think you're gonna be happy with the price that you're gonna be able to get.
Thank you, Stephen.
All right, thanks guys.
Thank you guys for attending. We will hopefully hear from you soon.
Have happy Friday.
Happy Friday.